Welcome back everyone to another Hero Forge painting tutorial. This time we're going to be tackling the Naga. Should be relatively easy and short. All we have to do is paint a whole bunch of scales. So let's get to it. Alright, let's get to it. We are starting off with some Vallejo Game Color Scurvy Green, which is a dark green with a little bit of blue in it. I used Ray Harryhausen's stop motion Medusa as inspiration for the colors for this project. We're going to work our way up to straight uniform green for the highlights on our Naga. And because the uniform green is so much lighter than the Scurvy green, we have to mix them together. The color differential between the two is so great, we have to do that in two steps. So we first mix in a little bit of uniform green, and then for the next step we mix in a little bit more. That gets us closer to the point where we can then use straight uniform green. As always, remember to keep those paints thin. I don't have them too thinned here, a little bit thicker than normal. You know, always have your paints thinned to the consistency that you're most comfortable with. Thinner is better, means less chance of brush strokes showing up. However, it takes a long time, or thicker is quicker, but you may have a few strokes. So it's up to you to decide how thin you want your paint. Now, highlighting up to uniform green is good enough for the snake portion of our Naga because we're going to be putting a scale texture pattern on those areas, so we don't need to do a bunch of highlighting, otherwise it's actually going to hide our texture. Now, since the Naga is pretty much a two-part creature, half human and half snake, I wanted to have a subtle color difference between those two areas. The uniform green was enough to highlight the snake portion, but on the upper body portion, especially on her front side, I use uniform green more as a base coat, so I put that on much more broadly. And then to highlight the uniform green, we are adding some pale yellow. It's always a good idea to put a little extra emphasis into the face, regardless of whatever you're painting. Because we have a lot of green skin going on, I wanted to add a little bit of different color to the face to make it stand out. So we're adding in a little bit of rose brown, going back to our uniform green, to give her face a little bit more warmth. And then to highlight that, mixing in some basic skin tone. So we still have a somewhat green face, but there's a slightly different tone to it. It should draw the eye, so now her face won't get lost in this sea of green on the miniature. Next is the underbelly, and we have a whole bunch of overlapping plates here to paint, and we want to give a really good definition to all those plates. We're starting off with charred brown, and this is going to frame this area. Virtually all this is going to be covered up. However, we want to put this down first so we get a nice dark line between each of those plates, and we want to make sure we don't cover that up while we paint the preceding colors. As you can see here, we're putting down Beasty brown now. Once again, that charred brown just staying in between all those little plates. And so now you can see them. They're much easier to pick out because we have that dark line between each one. We're going to mix in some pale yellow twice for our highlights. Remember, we use that on the skin, so this will help to tie the underbelly color into the skin a little bit. And with this miniature, this is actually an excellent example of where to put your highlights. Because the tail twists, we have to change where the highlights hit on this underbelly section. So at the top, we start with a full line of a highlight, but as the tail twists around, you can see we're starting to highlight just the top section. So we have to adjust where the light is hitting on the model based on where the tail turns. Again, perfect example of where to highlight your miniatures, and always the easiest way to tell is just if you look at the miniature from the top down, wherever you can see, that's the area that's going to be most hit by sunlight. So those are the areas you want to highlight. Time to paint some scales, and we're adding a little blue into the mix. Blue and Escorpena green, and all we're doing is painting dots. It's as simple as that. We could paint a much more complex scale pattern on this model. However, we do have a problem. Because the tail twists and turns so much, it will be very difficult to make a clear hand-painted pattern all over the tail. So we are just going to go with dots, easy to replicate and easy to paint in those hard-to-reach areas. For a little variety, we are mixing up the paint mix and switching out the blue for a little bit of Plague Brown and just doing a line of dots, not a exactly straight line, but a little bit lighter towards the center section down her back. Down her middle, I'm painting a diamond pattern using Jade Green, and if you look close there, you may notice that I'm painting it over a series of blue and black dots. The problem was that with the dots in the center, the tail looked way too busy, so I had to clean it up and simplify the pattern a little bit by having this solid section in the middle. So it looked a lot more pleasing to the eye, and it looked a lot cleaner. Painting the hair is a simple process. First burnt red, then burnt red mixed equally with Parasite Brown, and then straight Parasite Brown. Perhaps a little bit of an unusual hair color considering all the green skin. However, once again, using Harryhausen as inspiration, so we are going to go with the red hair. And there is our Harryhausen inspired Naga, all done. Told you be quick. You can see we didn't spend a whole lot of time painting these scales, and you don't always have to do that. I could have done a much more complex pattern on the scales if I wanted to, but on the tabletop, just doing dots like this is so easy, and it really adds just a little bit of something extra to the miniature, and it doesn't take any time at all. So you don't have to go in and paint individual hairs on your miniature sometimes. Just take it easy, do a simple textured pattern, and it should come out looking really good. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.